When it comes to Drake, this is the moment a lot of people have been waiting for. For months, anyone raising questions about his financial situation was laughed at, mocked, and dismissed as if the claims were completely made up. But now the conversation has changed, and the documents being discussed are forcing people to look at the story from a very different angle. If these reports hold up, we're not just talking about Drake himself, we're talking about serious questions surrounding OVO's financial position. And trust me, what you're about to hear could become one of the biggest talking points from this entire era of hip-hop. The reason this story is exploding is because plenty of fans would rather ignore it than confront what the legal filings are allegedly suggesting. Instead of relying on rumors or social media debates, the discussion now revolves around lawsuits, legal paperwork, and claims that deserve a closer look before anyone jumps to conclusions. That's exactly why this story has so much attention, because official filings always carry more weight than online speculation. Whether people like it or not, these allegations are putting Drake and OVO under a spotlight that can't easily be avoided. Now, before anyone starts arguing in the comments, let's focus on what has actually been reported instead of emotions. The lawsuit that's making headlines contains allegations that could have major implications if they're ultimately proven accurate, and that's why it's become such a massive story. Rather than making dramatic claims ourselves, let's break down exactly what the documents say so everyone can judge the information based on the facts being presented. According to reports, an article claims that Drake's OVO company has been hit with a lawsuit while allegedly operating at a significant financial loss. The report also connects this situation to earlier claims that there were discussions about selling a 50% stake in the company to Authentic Brands Group, adding another layer to an already complicated story. It goes on to mention that while Drake found success this year with Iceman, questions surrounding October's very own could overshadow some of that momentum. The article says the legal dispute stems from allegations that OVO failed to satisfy outstanding debt obligations, citing reporting from the National Law Review. One detail worth mentioning is that the same report also acknowledges the success of Iceman, which suggests the coverage isn't simply attacking Drake, but presenting both positive and negative developments. That's important because it shows the report is attempting to cover the full picture instead of focusing on only one narrative. According to the report, the lawsuit was allegedly filed by RE OVO Growth Capital I LLC against OVO ULC in British Columbia, Canada, over claims involving multiple defaulted loan payments. It also revisits how Drake co-founded OVO alongside Oliver El Khatib and Noah Forty Shabib before expanding the brand beyond music into fashion, investments, and other consumer ventures. Those business expansions make the current allegations even more significant because they involve much more than just a record label. The report further claims that RE is seeking at least $4.6 million, along with default interest, legal fees, and other amounts tied to the financing agreements. It also alleges that OVO generated roughly $72 million in revenue during 2024 and nearly $400 million between 2019 and 2024, while still operating at a loss. If those figures are accurate, that's the part that really grabs attention, because high revenue doesn't automatically mean a business is financially healthy.
Finally, the report alleges that OVO lost approximately $8 million over that broader period, including around $12 million between 2022 and 2024. Those are serious allegations, and if they end up being verified in court, they could reshape the conversation around Drake's business empire in a major way. But as always, it's important to remember that these are claims made in legal filings, and the legal process will ultimately determine how the case unfolds. And then the report takes things another step further, and this is where the story really starts to escalate. It claims ARI offered OVO multiple financing transition plans throughout 2025, yet alleges the company still defaulted on more than $5 million in convertible promissory notes by missing required payments and violating other terms of the financing agreements. The report also says OVO entered into a formal forbearance agreement in March, but ARI alleges only partial payments were made, while other contractual obligations remained unresolved. If those allegations are ultimately upheld, this lawsuit could become much bigger than most people initially expected. The article also circles back to the reported discussions about Drake potentially selling a 50% stake in OVO to Authentic Brands Group, one of the biggest licensing companies in the industry. Some observers believe that move could have been aimed at improving the company's financial position, although that interpretation remains speculative. After all, giving up half of your ownership and influence is a significant decision, and naturally, it raises questions about what may have been happening behind the scenes. Now, let's pause for a second, because this is exactly why so many people have been paying attention to this story. For months, there were questions surrounding OVO's finances, and now legal filings are adding another layer to that conversation. According to the lawsuit, OVO generated nearly $400 million over 5 years, while allegedly continuing to operate at a loss, and that's the detail grabbing the most attention. High revenue sounds impressive, but if expenses consistently outpace income, it paints a very different business picture. If you read through the allegations carefully, the report claims the company carried more than $5 million in debt while repeatedly falling behind on required payments. If those claims are accurate, it suggests the issue wasn't simply generating revenue, but managing financial obligations effectively. Of course, these are still allegations that will ultimately be tested through the legal process, but they certainly explain why this lawsuit has become such a major topic across hip-hop media. The timing of all this has also fueled a much bigger debate within the rap community. Critics have pointed back to comments from artists and industry figures who previously questioned Drake's business decisions, arguing that these reports could support some of those earlier criticisms. Whether you agree with those opinions or not, this lawsuit has definitely reopened conversations that many people assumed were already over. That being said, it's important not to confuse allegations with confirmed facts. Until everything plays out in court, nobody can say with certainty how this case will end or what the final outcome will be. But if the claims are substantiated, it could represent one of the biggest business challenges OVO has faced since the brand was created. The reports also make some of Drake's recent career moves look different through a financial lens. Some fans have wondered whether the rapid pace of releases following the rap feud, including projects packed with dozens of songs, was simply an artistic decision or part of a broader strategy to maximize streams and revenue. That's ultimately speculation, but it's a theory that's gaining more attention now that these financial allegations have surfaced. The same questions are being asked about Drake's touring schedule. After spending years avoiding certain international markets, he suddenly became far more active in places like Europe and Australia, leading some fans to wonder whether expanding those tours was part of a larger financial plan. Whether that's true or not remains to be seen, but one thing is certain, you won't believe how many
questions this lawsuit has created, and this story is far from over. Looking back, a lot of people point to 2024 as the moment these questions really started gaining momentum. Since then, every new report has added another piece to the puzzle, and for many fans, it's beginning to explain why OVO has been making some surprising business moves. The combination of a reported lawsuit and the reported sale of a 50% stake in the company has naturally sparked a lot of discussion. Whether those events are connected or not remains uncertain, but it's definitely become one of the biggest talking points surrounding Drake's business empire. One thing that's hard to ignore is how different this looks compared to the image Drake has often projected. His music frequently references wealth, ownership, and financial success, so reports suggesting a major equity deal have left many people asking questions. Selling a significant portion of a company you built isn't a small decision, and while there could be several legitimate business reasons behind it, fans are understandably trying to connect the dots. That's exactly why this story has generated so much attention. Some commentators believe the reported equity sale could have been a way to improve the company's financial flexibility, although that's ultimately speculation. Others argue it may simply reflect a long-term business strategy rather than financial distress. Until more information becomes public, both possibilities remain on the table. That's why it's important to separate documented reports from assumptions. The same applies to discussions surrounding Drake's spending habits. Because of his public partnership with Stake and his well-known interest in gambling content, some people have speculated that personal spending could play a role in his finances. However, there is no public evidence confirming that gambling caused any of the issues alleged in the lawsuit, so that remains purely speculation. The legal filings themselves focus on financing agreements and alleged debt obligations, not personal gambling activity. If nothing else, this situation highlights an important lesson about the music business. Massive streaming numbers and headline revenue don't automatically translate into a profitable company, especially when operating expenses, investments, and debt are involved. That's something many fans overlook when they judge an artist's financial position solely by chart success. Sometimes the business side tells a completely different story. The reports have also led some fans to re-examine Drake's recent career decisions. His fast-paced release schedule after the rap battle, along with multiple major projects arriving within a relatively short period, has fueled speculation that maximizing revenue may have become an increased priority. Whether that's actually true remains unknown, but it's certainly a theory that's gained traction as these reports continue circulating. The same questions have been raised about Drake's touring schedule as well. After spending years focusing on certain markets, he became much more active internationally, leading some observers to wonder if there was a broader business strategy behind those decisions. Of course, artists tour for many reasons, so it's impossible to draw firm conclusions based on timing alone. Still, the conversation has definitely shifted. At the end of the day, the biggest takeaway is simple: don't confuse public perception with financial reality. An artist can dominate streaming platforms, sell out arenas, and still face complicated business challenges behind the scenes. That's why stories like this generate so much interest. They remind everyone that success on the charts doesn't always reveal the full picture. As for the lawsuit itself, these are still allegations that have not been fully resolved in court. Drake and OVO will have the opportunity to respond through the legal process, and the final outcome could look very different from today's headlines. Until then, it's best to follow the verified facts instead of rushing to conclusions. With all of that said, let me know what you think about these reports and where you believe this story goes next.